Thank you, Taleo. I'm very excited to be here today, and I would like to dedicate my talk to helping you win all day, every day, and achieving the successes that you are after this year and throughout the future as well. You saw in that video what defines success at the Ironman Triathlon. One day, one race, and certainly only one champion. If I could swim 2.4 miles in the open ocean off the coast of Kona in about 50 minutes, get out of the water, bike 112 miles along hot, windy, desolate lava of the west side of the big island of Hawaii, averaging about 25 miles an hour the entire way, which is actually what Lance Armstrong had to average to win his final Tour de France victory. And after that warm-up, get off of my bike, run a marathon, 26.2 miles, averaging 6 minutes and 10 seconds every single mile, I would be the Ironman champ. You guys ready to sign up? Anything less than that and somebody else was going to walk away with the crown. So what I'd like to do through my talk today is to share with you 3 very simple but powerful tools that indeed enabled me to win that amazing race 6 times. The first of those tools is to clarify the work your goals are asking you to do to accomplish the success that you are after. What is the work your goals are asking you to do to achieve those great dreams? Having an answer to that question is what will change somebody from being very busy to being very effective. And certainly being effective is a recipe for success. It was not until I asked myself, what is the training that the Ironman wants me to do to be the champion, that I actually went from training a lot to doing the right type of training to become the champion. The second key is to have a willingness to adjust that strategy based on its effectiveness. I mean, let's face it. We all live in a world that's very unpredictable. The Ironman is a very unpredictable race. There are many competitors out there, and we have to be able to respond to not only their strengths, but also the changes in the environment that we're working in. I knew every competitor that I was going to be competing against. I highlighted the top 5 that I knew had a realistic chance of being number 1. And I designed my training, made the adjustments each year so that I would be as good as them plus 10%. And you know why I made that 10% adjustment? Because the real world doesn't follow our ideal strategy, does it? We need to be willing to adjust that strategy based on its effectiveness in that very unpredictable environment called the real world. The third and final tool that I'll share with you today is to have an absolute commitment to completion. Now, what does that mean? Having a commitment to completion says, I will have the same enthusiasm at the end of the year for my work that I had at the beginning of the year when I set out my goals. A commitment to completion says, I will not join the herds that are saying, it's too difficult nowadays, we can't change, we can't survive in this environment. I will be the one leading the way, finding the solutions to make our dreams come to fruition in this environment. I will be the one who will help our company respond better to those changes, respond before our competitors so that we can be the leaders. Now, in 1982, in that first race that I did, there were about 1,000 other athletes in it, and there's one that I need to highlight for you because this athlete became the biggest challenge to me becoming the champion. It was a competitor named Dave Scott. He knew that the better he ate, the better he was going to perform. As an example, in 1982, Dave Scott was a vegetarian, but he knew that endurance athletes needed a lot of protein. So to get the protein his body needed, he ate a lot of cottage cheese. Well, I figured cottage cheese is pretty healthy. It's on every diet platter you see in the restaurants. Dave Scott felt like cottage cheese had too much fat in it. So to optimize the performance of his cottage cheese, before he would eat it, he would stick it in a strainer and he would rinse it. If I'm going to win the Ironman, I've got to beat a guy who's willing to rinse his cottage cheese. As you know, the big goals do not happen at the speed of Twitter, do they? They don't happen overnight. We need to give ourselves time to develop those skills that will take us all the way to being the champion. And it's also very important to have a team of support that will help us to get there, isn't it? It may look like an individual sport in the world of triathlon, but it was not. I needed training partners who were going to help keep me on track day in and day out with my training, just like you. It's not an individual endeavor you have at Taleo, is it? You need your work partners who are going to help you stay on track and that you can also help stay on track. As a triathlete, It was not good enough to be just kind of good at swimming, biking, and running. I had to be great at it. At Taleo, you have your 3 suites of offerings of technology that you put out there in the world. It's not good enough to be just good, is it? You have to be great at all 3 of those and understand them. But in the sport of triathlon, I could not know everything there was to know about swimming and everything there was to know about biking and everything there was to know about running and everything there was to know about nutrition and sports physiology. So I tapped into experts who did have answers and who were experts in all of those areas. That was my team of support also. I'm sure you have those experts that you tap into, those resources that help you become great at understanding and delivering the things that you have here in your 3 suites. We swam 2.4 miles in the ocean together. We biked 112 miles within sight of each other. We ran the opening miles of that marathon almost side by side. At the half marathon point, we passed the final competitor who had been ahead of us. One of us was going to be the champion, and I was feeling great.
Finally, with 4 miles to go, Dave Scott slips by a walking Mark Allen under cover of a pace car. Mark Allen never sees him. It was a calculated move by Scott, just in case Allen was capable of taking an 8 count on the Kona blacktop and then duking it out again in the final miles.
But Allen, who ran to victory in Dallas and France and Japan and Australia, Allen, the man on the cereal box, Mr. Triathlon, now knew that he was back in the Ironman, back on Dave Scott's turf. The final 4 miles would give Mark more than enough time to wonder why. Why was he invincible around the world, everywhere, everywhere except here, where Dave Scott was king of the long, hot road. Mark looked okay as he came to the finish, but he really wasn't. Taken to the medical tent, he was pumped with 3 liters of glucose solution. He didn't respond. He had to be rushed to the hospital, where he was found to be severely dehydrated and bleeding internally. Mark Allen would return to race another day. But on this particular day, he had not only given his all, he had given more than he had to give.
Now, everybody in this room has had to deal with setbacks, with disappointments, with times where we felt like we did the right kind of work, but the results didn't show it. But those are really just moments where we're being tested of our commitment to completion, isn't it? Are we just going to give up? Or are we going to stand back up, make the adjustments necessary, and take it all the way to the realization of those dreams and goals that we set out for? Now, there really are only 2 kinds of adjustments that we can make. One is to change the way we actually do our work, and the second is to ask ourselves, what is it about me that might be holding me back from the success that I'm after? What is it about my inner character that's holding me back? Well, I had to ask myself those 2 questions now. The first one I did is I said, what's wrong with my training, the way that I do my work? See, I had to get better at swimming, cycling, and running. Those are probably not work skills that will help you out at Taleo. But the other question, what is it about me that's holding me back from the success that I'm after? The answers that we get from that will help us in any endeavor. Things like being willing to give 100% of what we have to give, even when it might look impossible. Developing that ability to quiet our minds in the tough moments so that we don't have that negative self-talk that indeed can derail us in those critical times. These are skills that will help all of us in every endeavor. So in 1989, as I prepared for my 7th Ironman, I designed 5 Ironman training days where I would swim 30 minutes, get out of the water, bike 7 hours, get off of my bike and run 30 minutes. That's an 8-hour training day. That's the kind of work that the Ironman is asking me to do to accomplish the success that I was after. Those were not easy days, but those 5 days only added 10 extra hours of work onto my entire training season. That's less than 2 minutes a day. Would you be willing to work less than 2 minutes a day, if done in the right way, to achieve the greatest dream you have for yourself? Absolutely.